Hello students, welcome to week 3 for PRL 580. This week we are focusing on the topic of global communications, looking specifically at models and methods that relate to some intercultural and global cultural results of communication efforts abroad. Our week 3 agenda tells us that we are reading chapters 5 of the Curtin and Gaither text as well as chapters 6 through 8 of the Golan text. This week we do have a discussion board that is due on Friday with replies due on Sunday, as well as an assignment, another reflective response assignment due on Sunday. When you look at the discussion board number 3, you'll see that you need to discuss what issues management or crisis management, those terms are interchangeable, are as referred to in the Golan text. So what does Golan define as issues management? That's the primary idea for your discussion board this week. Also, please provide a link to an online article that you found that needs issues management in some regards. So specifically what this means is go online, do a little search, find a company that is in the needs of some type of global issues management, and provide a reflection on that as well as the link to that company. Make sure to read all of your course mates' responses and respond to at least 3 of them in the discussion board. Assignment number 3 is another reflective response. So after you have finished reading chapter 6 of the Golan text, it's important that you know you need to write a 7 to 1,000 word paper explaining 3 of the following things here. The 4th point is just a reminder that you need to complete your paper in APA format and style. However, though, you will need to describe and explain the theoretical framework of relationship management for public relations diplomacy, as well as provide at least 3 examples to this framework utilized within PR campaigns and cases or other academic research studies, and then provide an analysis of coordinated management of meaning theory, which will be presented in the lecture today, and the framework of relationship management and how they relate to diplomacy and current PR trends. So essentially point number 3 is look at coordinated management of meaning theory and the framework of the relationship management theory in chapter 6, and then provide some discussion on how they relate to diplomacy and current PR trends. Specifically, I wanted to spend some time outlining what crisis or issues management is and what that pertains to and what that means in the scope of international public relations efforts. So typically speaking, crisis management is defined as being effective when it anticipates situations and pre-plans the situations to minimize damage to an organization or a brand. So essentially, crisis or issues management is handling those situations that we typically cannot plan for. We can prepare for them as much as we can, but they are hitting our company or our brand or an organization in a way that could potentially damage how the public perceives us in whatever facet that may be. So with that, in order to handle it effectively, is to have effective planning in the forefront in the beginning prior to this happening in a pre-planning stage as much as we can. Now, we cannot plan for every single potential issue or crisis that may emerge within our company or that may directly affect our company or brand, but we can have some steps in place that are general enough that can provide us with some good sources and effective dissemination of communication in a very quick response setting when any situation can arise. So with that, the things you'll need to do is anticipate. It's very important that we anticipate that anything can happen. Usually it's very important, and most large companies identify a team of people that work together to handle specific crisis or issues management. They're sort of on call at any time for a situation to arise. Typically, a crisis or issues management team within a company has a folder somewhere located physically in the office building as well as on the cloud that's accessible with a complete step-by-step plan on what to do for any situation in terms of identifying the situation, the risk, contacting the press, stakeholders involved, things like that. With that, once you've anticipated, made a list of any potential issues or crises you feel that could arise within your company or directly affect your company, you identify a team, and then you train multiple spokespeople. Now, some people think, okay, yes, we know we need to train a spokesperson for the company. Why train multiple spokespeople? Well, the reason for this is simple. You can't really anticipate. Theoretically, you can't anticipate what a crisis or an issue can emerge. You've seen situations, especially with active shooters or the BP oil spill, or even things like Enron and such, where while in hindsight, 2020, it looked like it could have been planned for better or anticipated in a more effective way. However, you never know when the situation is going to happen. So it can happen on the weekend, it can happen on a holiday, it can happen when your only trained media spokesperson is on vacation, whatever it may be. And then you're going to be stuck in the lurch where you're not going to have somebody that is there and trained to handle media requests and speak on behalf of the company. So a well-planned crisis management situation will have a team identified as well as multiple people trained in how to be a spokesperson for the company. So that way you'll always have at least one or multiple options. And not only that, even if everybody is available, sometimes these crises or these issues captivate the news cycle for more than 20 to 48 hours straight, and people need breaks. And so it's really important that you have people that you can rotate into to be part of the team that talks and deals with the media. Once you've trained your spokespersons to handle media requests and speak to the media, it's important to establish and maintain notification and monitoring systems for any potential crisis or issues. You need to identify and know your stakeholders. They are the ones that you're going to want to communicate with first prior to notifying the media or discussing what's going on with the media. The people that are most closely associated with the crisis, the issue, or associated with your company that it will be directly affected by this particular issue need to be notified first and discussed with first. You need to know who those stakeholders are, and they may change depending on the situation. It's important to develop holding statements. Holding statements are simply media responses that are standard, where you can plug in information that are specific to the crisis, but the verbiage is standard that can be used virtually in any situation. So our prayers are with those that were lost in this situation, or our prayers are with those that or we did not have knowledge of whatever it may be. Have some standard holding statements that you can use and you can place in as a holder to give to the media, so you can captivate them and address their need to release information to the public quickly while you gather your thoughts and really start to wrap your head around what is going on, or what you may need to do in that situation. Once you do that, you need to assess the crisis and then adapt key messages. Key messages now are specific things that you continue to state in every single media interview, every single response to the public. So if you say something to the media about a situation, those key messages will be utilized at some point within all media communications. It's really important that afterwards the crisis has been done, you have a plan to conduct a post-crisis analysis so you can revise it and start to move forward from there. I wanted to hit this with you at this point because you do have direct reading in this, and it's important that you have a good idea of where it pertains to. Now, moving into coordinated management of meaning theory, I wanted to bring this theory in at this point in the term because I feel it's very complementary, along with the next one that we're going to discuss, to the chapter in the Curtin and Gaither text related to the face and shape of campaign materials and international PR. Now you'll notice that Curtin and Gaither tell us that cultural meaning is encoded in the format and content of public relations materials, and learning another language and culture is only the starting point for launching an international PR campaign. It's really important that practitioners are able to try different points of view in their work to reach new understandings and understand issues of culture, power, and difference affect the production and content of all PR materials. So when you get in there, It's important to have some of these communication theories that are interpersonal, yes, but also deal with constructing their own social realities and such in your wheelhouse to be able to apply that when you create PR materials in international settings. So, for example, coordinated management of meaning was developed by Pearson Conan, and essentially the theory tells us that when someone has a conversation with anyone or consumes any type of media or communication with anyone or anything, they construct their own social reality about that communication. Coordinated management of meaning, or CMM, deals with how people manage the meaning of items that they consume, communicative items they consume, and how they coordinate that meaning internally. So Pearson Conan really believes that this happens naturally within everyday interactions. In fact, they really contend that we construct these social realities as we assign meaning to interactions cognitively, meaning that we just assign meaning to realities to store and recall information as needed within similar situations occur. So it happens within three ways. Typically what they're telling us is that we begin to construct our own social realities and manage that meaning according to which the communicative experience took place in, which communicative experience it took place within. So as you're developing these international PR campaigns and such, it's important to remember that it has been pointed out to us in the text that cultural meaning is encoded in the format of content of public relations materials. So how do we create and construct social realities for a culture that maybe we're not very familiar with? And that can be very difficult. Well, CMM comes in and tells us that, look, anytime somebody is exposed to any type of communicative experience that's meaningful and cultural, they're going to assign meaning for it to construct their own social reality so they can be prepared to have a response for that situation in the future. So if I've never been to a country and I travel to that country and I get off the plane and I go to order a cup of coffee, my first experience in doing that is going to help me construct meaning that I'm going to later coordinate and manage internally and cognitively without even realizing it, so I know how to order coffee in the future. So think about some situations that were new to you and how you handled that and managed that meaning. Well, Pearson Conan tells us that we manage meaning and construct meaning and coordinate meaning in one of three ways. We utilize coordination, coherence, or mystery in all communication that takes place for us where we are creating our own social reality or adapting to a new communicative experience. So PR is in the business of developing communication materials to strategically communicate and act as an intermediary between an organization and its public. So it's important to understand that people will assign and manage meaning and create social realities based off that material you create in one of three ways. Coordination tells us in CMM, this theory, that we will direct our attention to the ways actions come together to produce patterns. So we're looking for patterns in this communication that we're receiving. Coherence tells us that we will direct our attention to the stories that we tell that make lives meaningful. It pays attention to the construction of meaning in the primary form of a story. So you'll see sometimes, a lot of times, we'll see branding commercials or PR related commercials. That's really any type of commercial or advertisement that is sent to the consumer that's not directly selling the product, meaning it's not the Macy's One Day Sale or something of that nature. It's maybe showing you about the brand or showing somebody using the product, but it's not saying, hey, get out there and go buy it. They use story to do that. So having coherence, directing our attention to the stories that we tell, will make our lives meaningful, pays attention to the construction of meaning in the primary form of a story. The third thing is mystery. It considers any social patterns that do not fit within coordination and that life exists with mystery all around us. So what Pearson Conan tell us, or they are saying, is their contention is that we apply mystery to anything we cannot coordinate a social pattern within. If we cannot fit it into our CMM lens, it's something new, or we're not quite sure with it, or it doesn't have the coordination that they say, where we're directing our actions in the way to produce a pattern, we automatically classify it as mystery internally. It's important to know that CMM is heavily influenced by culture, communicative interactions, and interpersonal communication. One primary focus of PR practitioners is to build interpersonal communication and communicative interactions with our audiences in many different ways, and hopefully to get that two-way dialogue going that you've probably learned about already within your courses of study. So CMM is a great theory to apply to a lot of the work this week. which is why we're utilizing it for our reflective response. When you get into the reading, I also wanted to point up ethnography of communication. Ethnography of communication helps us because while when we think of ethnography from a research standpoint, we know that it is the study of people or cultures, and that it typically deals with a research participant perspective of a culture, meaning that the researcher immerses themselves in the culture of another to gain and provide valuable lived experiences of the group being studied. And that ethnography is designed to explore cultural phenomena where the researcher observe society from the point of view of the subject in the study. So with that, Hymes developed in the 1960s the idea of ethnography of communication, where you are fully immersing yourself in the observation by becoming a participant. The goal really of his theory is to study communicative competence of a specific speech community. So he wanted to get in there and see the speech patterns of a community. But it also found that analyzing patterns of communication that organize the use of language in particularly develops beneficial and more cohesive communicative activities and experiences within a given culture. So it's really important to know that if we think of ethnography of communication, if we get in there and start to immerse ourselves in the culture in some way or another, we'll help ourselves as PR practitioners on focusing on the structuring of communicative behaviors that rule the conduct of social life within that culture. So the objective of ethnography of communication is to describe the communicative habits shared by members of a community, and its central unit of analysis is the communicative event that is observed: ceremonies, meal times, social gatherings, parties, etc. So Curtin and Gaither point out that PR practitioners must serve as strategic decoders who are able to decode discourses and then reappropriate selected parts to encode them into PR materials. One way to be able to do this is to utilize the ideas of Hymes' ethnography of communication. If we are immersing ourselves in the culture and acting as a research participant to design in a way that's designed to explore cultural phenomena where we are immersing ourselves in the society from the point of view of the subject of the study or of the society, we are able to better understand and provide and describe the communicative habits shared by members of the community. And if we're working as a way to be a strategic decoder of a specific culture who is able to decode the discourse and then reappropriate selected parts to encode them into public relations materials, this theory can help us do that. By truly immersing ourselves in the culture and really trying to understand them, we can do a better job of being able to develop PR campaign materials for that given situation or the campaign we may be overseeing. As a recap, I wanted to remind you we're reading Chapter 5 of the Curtin Gaither text, as well as in the Golan text, reading Chapters 6 through 8. We have a discussion board due on Friday with replies due on Sunday, and another reflective response assignment related to the Golan text and the coordinated management of meaning theory discussed in this lecture. If you have any questions, let me know. I look forward to interacting with you this week, and I pray you all have a blessed week. God bless.